Hello, we're here talking with Pat O'Dwyer of the Pat O'Dwyer Show on WTBQ. Pat, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So, tell me, when's your show?
My show is on Fridays from 9 to 10 a.m. on WTBQ AM, which is 1110 AM and 93.5 FM, and WTBQ.com for on your computer.
That sounds great. Tell me about your show. How is it unique from others?
It generally is politically oriented. I go after everybody. I take no prisoners, and federal, state, local. If something has happened during the week that is of great moment to the community and pertinent to things here in Orange County, no matter who does it, no matter who's the good guy or the bad guy, good woman, bad woman, I talk about it.
Yeah, what would you say your goals are with your show?
To inform the public. Sometimes I might get a little overboard in my personal feeling on an issue. For instance, this morning, I am passionate about saving people of this county money, and that government has got to stop spending. And this big issue has come to the fore about health care and government spending for employees' health care. And I firmly believe that if you're going to ask the person who plows the street in the middle of the night to pay 10% towards their health care, then managerial, appointed, and elected officials have got to pay their fair share.
Tell us what is unique about your background that makes the show more interesting.
Well, I started in this game of politics when I was maybe 6, 7 years old, and that's a few years ago, to say the least. My dad was working in the Truman administration. He was chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission under President Truman, and of course we lived in Suffolk County, a major Republican county, and there were two people aside from my father who thought that Harry Truman would win, and that was the trooper, the major at the local state police headquarters, and a wonderful man called Al Freistad, and he owned the drugstore, the pharmacy, in the Bayshore Pharmacy, and the three of them. And then, of course, because I thought my father walked on water, I truly believed that Harry would win too. And election day came, and everybody, we went, it's over, Dewey's going to win. And we went down to see Al Freistad, and Al said, trying to get my father to come to grips with this thing, because you're going to lose your job, Ed. And he said, out of total frustration, no matter what time they call it, if Truman wins, you bring her down here, and I'll give her anything she wants in the store.
Guess that was memorable.
At about 4 o'clock, my father wrapped me up in his coat, put me in the car, called Al and said, Al, open the store. She's ready. And I went down, and he said to me, what do you want? And I said, I want a tuna fish sandwich and a chocolate malted. And this was my first lesson in compromise. First lesson in compromise. My mother had been furious because my father refused to send me to bed, and I was supposed to go to school. And so my father said to me, listen, who is so mad at us right now that she probably won't speak to us for a few days? And of course I said, Mommy. And he said, okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to get something for Mommy, and then I will bring you back later, and you will have your tuna fish sandwich and your chocolate malted. And that was compromise. We took care of my mother, got her a bottle of perfume. She was happy, she forgave us. I got what I wanted. My father got to keep his job, everybody, you gotta compromise. It was true then, it's true now.
First lesson
So
in
that,
politics.
absolutely, first lesson in politics, compromise.
How do you prepare for your show?
I read copiously, probably more than I should. I read the papers, I read the Times, I read the Washington papers, I read blogs, I read everything that I think is interesting, conservative as well as liberal, and try to get all aspects of an issue. Try to get all aspects.
What would you say the biggest challenge is when doing your show?
The biggest challenge is really to myself, and that is to be as fair as I possibly can. For instance, I'm sure people are surprised when they hear me praise, for instance, Senator McCain and the position he took on the earmark for the bridge to nowhere in Alaska. And he stood up on the floor of the United States Senate with all his background and popularity and everything. He could have let that thing go. But he didn't, because he knew it was wrong. And he stood up on the floor and went against his colleague, Senator Stevens, and said how outrageous it was and got that money yanked. Now, here's the problem with it. It was good theater at the moment, because that's what it turned out to be. Unfortunately, the amount, the hundreds of millions of dollars for that bridge, wound up going into the general fund for Alaska. So in effect, that bridge still could have been built. The important thing, though, was that John McCain stood up and he did the right thing, and he deserved the credit for it.
Well, you've obviously had a long interest in politics, but is there something in particular that made you want to have your own show on the air?
Well, it was, I started, years ago, there was a radio station called Wall Radio, and John Moultrie was the host on that show, and he used to bring on candidates, and I got on because I was running for town supervisor in Goshen, and I won, and loved being supervisor. It's really, any of these elected positions, if you're not just looking for benefits and a little extra buck in your pocket, change on the dresser, you can really do some good things for people, you really can. And I enjoyed that very much. So that was the beginning. And then John came over here, and eventually they asked me if I'd like to have a show. I said, I'd love it. I'd love it. So that's how it happened.
Would you say you've made any enemies over the years with your show?
I don't know. People have been very gracious. People stop me in the supermarket, thank me for saying things that they would love to call in and say. They do, obviously you can hear, for instance, the subject this morning, gay marriage. Some people feel very strongly about that. I feel very strongly the other way. But then there's again, we can compromise. My friend George, and I call George my friend, because he was very, very good. We compromised on the issue of gun control when there was that terrible, devastating murder at the university. Was it the University of Virginia? I think it was Virginia. Was that it?
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech, right. And this was a young man who had been stated by the court that he needed to have counseling, that he needed help, that he needed therapy. It was court ordered, but nobody followed up. The court didn't follow up, the college, his family, nobody followed up. This kid went out, not only did he buy a gun in a gun store, but he bought another one over online and created, devastated people. So George and I talked about that, and we agreed that in gun control, there should be consideration, definite consideration for finding a way to not have guns get into the hands of those who are not mentally capable of knowing or using them in the proper manner.
Well, obviously, as I saw today, controversial topics are nothing new to you, but is there one in particular that really stood out? Or
The one that I think stands out to me right now is the whole issue of a new government center. The county executive wants to build a new government center. He feels that he can do this for $100 million. I don't think you can knock the building down for $100 million. And it's going to cost a fortune. Now, that building, it's just about the ugliest thing that God ever put on the face of the earth. But that doesn't mean it should be torn down. If you need new windows, if you have a leak in your roof, you're going to tear your house down? I don't think so. I think what needs to be done is a fair assessment. Structural engineers, independent structural engineers to come in and say what needs to be done to keep this building around for another 25 years. And how much it would cost. If you're going to tear this building down, what about the courthouse, the new courthouse? That courthouse is dysfunctional and it's 10 years old. Now how are you going to take this building away from it? They connect. They connect. How do you do it without damaging the courthouse, disrupting what's going to go on there? It's regrettable. It's regrettable, but I think it needs a whole rethink. And I'm all for keeping the government center where it is.
Right. Well, that was Pat O'Dwyer of the Pat O'Dwyer Show. Pat, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.